Hi. This school's students are not particularly concerned about their studies. They have problems and more important things to do. Relationships with parents, unrequited infatuations, bullying, and poverty. Aren't these things enough grounds for a nervous breakdown? But everything changes when the school is doomed for closure due to poor academic performance, and a new mysterious teacher appears. A strange man, Mr. Cheng, shows up for an interview at the school in Hong Kong. He has no experience or specialized education. Of course, the principal nicely refuses him, especially since there's big problems with academic performance and discipline here. But Cheng shows the principal some kind of recommendation letter, which changes the employer's mind. He warns that he won't offer Cheng any bonuses or payment for extra hours. Actually, Cheng would earn more as a waiter, but his words don't scare Cheng at all. Then, the men shake hands and agree that he can work the very next day. When the new teacher enters the classroom, the children don't even notice their presence at first. They chatter, play video games, brew instant noodles, tune the ukulele. In short, they do anything but prepare for the lesson. However, instead of scolding them, Mr. Cheng tries to talk to each of them and give them some friendly advice on what they're doing. Then he introduces himself and says that from now on he will be their homeroom teacher who will also teach them social studies. For a couple of minutes, he manages to capture the attention of the students. The children wonder about his life in the USA and the tattoo, but that doesn't last long. The students go back to their stuff, and Mr. Cheng has to go to extreme lengths to talk sense into them. Between classes, some of the kids are also busy with anything other than preparing for class. For example, at recess, 5 boys run to the sports building to secretly smoke and have school gossip. But suddenly their mini-party is dispersed by the captain of the local basketball team. A brawl almost unravels between the guys, but the athletes need to hurry to training. The friends also go to see it. However, one of them, Orphan Jack, has a specific purpose in mind. He likes a girl who seems to be in love with the team captain, so he decides to do him wrong. The guy throws a glass bottle on the field and pretends that he has nothing to do with it. The next day, a review committee arrives at the school. It seems that its head is skeptical, but the principal tries to make a good impression by all means. Meanwhile, the boys prank Mr. Cheng, but he turns out to be faster than expected. Mr. Cheng says that if kids are so eager to skip class, they should answer 3 questions to be free. The first lucky person is the guy with the ukulele. He's allowed to go home, so he dances out of the classroom. Then, everyone starts chanting in unison that they also want to leave class. And unfortunately, the head of the committee sees the scene. The inspector bluntly tells the principal that things are really bad at the school. Last year, none of the local students entered the university, and if the situation doesn't improve this year, they'll have to close the school. After the class, 5 friends go to lunch and encounter a group of athletes there. The captain, who was humiliated by Jack the other day in front of their mutual passion, begins to quip about the fact that not everyone at school has parents. Jack understands that this is about him because he lives with his grandmother. He does not hold back against the bully, and a mass fight breaks out between groups of school children. The police arrive at school. The principal informs Cheng that 5 students from his class will be expelled due to a fight. The new teacher has a heated argument with the principal, and then runs headlong to his classroom to find Jack and the captain of the basketball team still fighting it out. The teacher separates them and tells the group that the principal is still giving them one last chance.
Come on, let's go back to class.
That evening, Mr. Cheng stays late at school. He finds the personal files of 5 friends and learns a lot about their lives. It turns out that the guy with the ukulele is an immigrant from Pakistan who grew up in Hong Kong. He dreams of becoming a musician and has faced rejection all his life because of the color of his skin. Gladys, a girl with short hair, has hated girly hobbies since childhood. Wants to become a racing driver and feels that her father loves her brother more than her. Twins Chris and Bruce live with their father, who's fond of liquor. Chris has become addicted to video games due to stress, and Bruce suffers from attention deficit disorder, is responsible for his brother, and only thinks about how to move out as soon as possible. Jack doesn't show up for school the next morning. He works at a restaurant as a part-time waiter. There, he hears a noisy group of businessmen discussing a plan to build a new luxury complex. All they need to do is wait for the school to close, buy the land, and start construction. Jack is rudely asked to pour more drinks, and when he brings the group's order, He notices the gold lighter of the group's leader on the table. He steals it on the sly, but the owner quickly notices the loss and immediately figures out the pickpocket. The guy orders his entourage to beat up the guy, takes out his school documents, and asks why Jack isn't in class. Finally, for some reason, he leaves him money in a business card. Mr. Cheng, meanwhile, is off on his own important business. He comes to the shop where Gordon's family works and sees him trying to escape from a crowd chasing him. Cheng readily defends the student, but suddenly learns that the boy's father was the head of the angry crowd. He was angry because his son tried to cheat the customer who bought their concert tickets, and all because Gordon wanted to keep one of the tickets for himself. Cheng asks Gordon why he doesn't perform on stage himself. He says that he hates it, and then the teacher decides to play chicken with him. He starts singing with street musicians and eggs on the student. He quickly gives in and collects his first ovation in his life. At Gladys' house, things are as they are usually. Her brother is pondered by the father, and she gets a box of cosmetics because she needs to look well-groomed. Her father also says that in the next few days he plans to introduce his daughter to the son of some influential man. Gladys fights with her father, leaves the house, and steals his car to drive around the parking lot. There, she meets Mr. Cheng. The teacher says that since the girl is so keen on driving fast, he invites her to go go-karting. But it's Cheng who will compete with her. But Gladys' father, whom the teacher has secretly invited, her father says if she wins, she can live as she pleases, and if she loses, she will have to marry.
Ready, go!
Of course, Gladys wins the race. Then, her father says it doesn't mean anything if she doesn't drive on the real roads. The daughter takes this as a challenge and immediately goes to the city outside the highway. The crazy race ends with her father crashing into a street tent and Gladys nearly getting hit by a truck. However, for the first couple of minutes, her dad believes that she has not survived and finally says to her the words that were so hard to utter before. A new school day begins. Mr. Cheng's students don't understand why he brought them to the rehabilitation center. It turns out that he met Chris and Bruce's dad beforehand and persuaded him to seek help. Now students can ask Mr. Huang any questions they want, but no one knows that he's the father of their classmates. The twins turn on their dad with sharp questions, pretending that they don't know him. Mr. Huang confesses that he is a really bad father, but he really wants to improve. He's already lost his wife, who's cheated on him, and soon he will lose his children. And if he could, he would tell his sons that he loved them and was very ashamed. Jack skips school again and goes to work, only this time for a new one. Now, he works for the thug from the restaurant. The guy owns a sports arena and tells the new employee that tomorrow there will be a cool duel. Everyone bets on a tough fighter, and the boss asks him to lose to get more money. However, the athlete refuses. Now, they need Jack's help. He has to feed the boxer some kind of relaxing drug for the US military. Cheng visits Jack's grandmother. According to her, the boy's parents died in a car accident. Cheng sees that they live a very modest life. The state has not allocated a normal housing for the family. The grandmother shows off her grandson and shows the teacher his diary with excellent grades. Cheng realizes that the diary is fake and learns that his student works all day to make ends meet and Jack's personal belongings. He notices a bottle with a strange substance. When the grandmother asks what the reason for his visit is, the teacher lies about giving her grandson a scholarship and hands her the money. The fitness room is preparing for the competition. Jack's boss tells him to start the operation, and he goes to pour the substance into a water bottle. Everything seems to be going according to plan, but suddenly the bodyguard notices something amiss. He takes the bottle out of the guy's pocket, grabs it, and when Jack asks the boss to stand up for him, the boss pretends not to know anything.
Drink up! Chill!
While the fight is starting in the wrestling hall, Cheng comes into the locker room. He tells the athletes that he's looking for his student. They try to kick him out, but Jack reacts just in time and starts shouting from the closed locker. A violent brawl breaks out in the locker room, and Mr. Cheng shows off his incredible kung fu skills in the blink of an eye. The teacher takes out one enemy after another, but when the star of the evening, John Jones, comes to him, the situation escalates. The wrestler is very strong, but Mr. Cheng is more cunning. The fight ends, and the police arrive at the scene. Jack tries to explain to the officers that he was forced to put poison, but the boss denies everything. Then the guy tells the whole truth about the fraud with bets. The police interrupt their argument and tell them that such situations are best handled in court. Then Jack's boss quickly bails out and drops the charges. Cheng takes Jack home, and instead of lecturing him, he simply asks the student not to upset his grandmother and come to class tomorrow. The next day, the whole school knows about Mr. Cheng. Stories about his brawl are on TV. From there, the students learn new details about the teacher's past. He served in the US Marine Corps and also studied at the same school. The boys start asking the matron, the saleswoman at the cafeteria, and other employees about what kind of student Master Cheng was. They're surprised to learn that their idol was a very naughty child, and he completely disrupted their own graduation ceremony, breaking the arm of a performing pianist from the parallel group. After that incident, Cheng's aunt, who raised him, took him to the States and sent him to military school on the recommendation of the principal. There, he learned real discipline and self-control, but the actual disappointment was waiting for him ahead. After spending several years in hot spots, Cheng realized that his whole life was meaningless, because war is meaningless by nature. Then he left the army and decided to travel the world. All this time, he sent postcards to his principal, who told him that he would succeed before saying goodbye. But after a long journey across the West, he decided to return to his homeland. There, he first visited the principal, who expressed the hope that Cheng would return to school to teach the younger generation, and wrote him that same letter of recommendation. Mr. Cheng's story inspires not only children, but also teachers. The school's atmosphere is completely changed. Students prepare for exams, engage in creative activities, and dream about their future at the university. But Bruce can't fit in with this new picture, because he goes to the pharmacy and secretly buys psychostimulants to treat his ADHD. But this doesn't help. On the next test, he gets the lowest grade in the group.
唉，唔講算啦。
幾分啊？差唔多啦。
After class, Cheng suggests individual tuition for Bruce, but the guy isn't uplifted. The next day, he lies to his brother that he is ill and is left alone at home. After locking the door, the guy starts sobbing and then writes a note and jumps from the shared balcony. At the hospital, Chris and Dad are told that Bruce has fallen into a coma. Within a few hours, local television is talking about what happened to the student at a well-known school. The principal gets into trouble, and people from the Ministry of Education are interested in Mr. Cheng. They challenge him to a conversation and begin to question the teacher's unusual teaching methods, to which he replies that the problem is not with him, but in the system that puts unbearable pressure on children. Meanwhile, the children at the school are already waiting for their favorite teacher. Finally, they see Mr. Cheng's motorcycle under the trees and run to meet him. Then they find out that he's just been fired. The children try to stop the teacher, but to no avail. It seems that the school has never been as quiet as it is now, but it can't be fixed. They need to prepare for exams, especially since good results can change the opinion of the commission about Mr. Cheng. The kids try their best, help one another, and spend all their time studying. Jack's boss finds out from the news that depending on the exam results, the school may not be closed, and asks his henchmen to get Cheng's number. On the day when the children come to the exam, they all receive a message from their favorite teacher. They wait for Cheng in the classroom, but instead of him, the villain from the fitness club comes into the audience with his entourage, who sent these messages. He orders his assistants to take their phones away from the guys and leave them in custody. They're almost resigned to the fact that they will be late for the exam, when suddenly, Mr. Cheng thought he had come back to say goodbye, but in reality, he was teaching his students one last lesson, this time in self-defense. He begins to fight the evil boss's entourage, until he's finally left alone with him. Then, the boss suddenly asks him an unexpected question. Cheng realizes that the man in front of him is the same piano player whose arm he broke at the prom. Then the guy gave up music because his father told him to stop doing stupid things and finally learns to protect himself. The bandit says that Cheng ruined his life, and now he'll pay with his own. A fierce fight begins between them, during which they destroy the entire classroom. Suddenly, the enemy pulls out a melee weapon and almost kills Cheng, but he manages to disarm the boss. The teacher raises his hand over his face for a longtime acquaintance, stops at the last moment, and pierces his own leg. Then he apologizes and leaves. Children are doing well for the exam, but this isn't all good news. The boss starts playing the piano again. Jack and Grandma get a new place to live, Gordon releases song after song and becomes a local star. Gladys' dad gives her a car and a driving course. Bruce comes out of his coma, and Chris lands a job. And finally, the most important thing, the school's funding is not just retained, but also increased. And of course, everyone's favorite teacher's coming back to social studies class. Write in the comments below if there was a teacher in your life who changed your fate. Although of course, there aren't many handsome people like Mr. Cheng. So you can let yourself go and talk about those who are more likely to mess up your life. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel. More cool movie stories await you there.